Hello and welcome back to new number ones for the week of July the 8th. My name is Corey and you're here with me now. And our pick of the week is Dispatched by Ignition Press, written by B. Clay Moore and illustrated by Daniel Gete or Daniel Getty. Again, depending on the pronunciation, it could also be a third thing that I'm completely missing. My apologies regardless. To get back to our story, this is kind of a fun thing because B. Clay Moore, if I'm not mistaken, is our first repeat author on the series. Going way back to episode 2, I think back in January or February, we discussed the comic Bloodland, which was written by B. Clay Moore about if the United States government had aligned themselves with a coven of vampires in order to extend a corrupt party's term, amongst other things that have happened in that series. I did not follow up on that series. I thought it has a very interesting idea, and I just wasn't really sure about some of the execution. I think it left me wanting to know a little bit more before I would commit to reading further into the series. That being said, we're not talking about Bloodline. We're talking about Dispatched. Dispatched is another really good idea by B. Clay Moore. He's been doing, and I have to say, this is my second bit of exposure to him. I really like him as an idea guy for sure. I think like the concepts are fun. Dispatched is sort of an ode to First Blood, an ode to Die Hard, an ode to a lot of the action films of the 80s and 90s, mixed in with a little bit of like John Wick or modern day Jason Statham movies. We always talk about what the three things we are looking for in a new number one. We're looking for, is the main character introduced in a proper way that we know about him? Is the world that he's interacting in introduced in a proper way that we get a better sense of what's happening? And is there enough meat on the bone that makes you want to continue reading the series further? That being said, our main character is Morgan Powers. Morgan is a former black ops agent who, in his new civilian life, is working essentially as an Amazon delivery driver. And we get glimpses of sort of that, I want to call it very First Blood esque training, where if you train a man how to kill and take a life, and he's good at that, and then you put him back in a civilian world, it's hard to turn that off, as Sylvester Stallone showed in First Blood. So we see a little bit of that. You know, our first introduction to him is a dog gets loose off the leash, runs and jumps at him, and he catches the dog by the throat and subdues the dog in a non-harmful way. But we see in a couple pages later, when he's in a support group meeting with other traumatized soldiers, that in that moment he was really tempted to kill the dog through no other means than that was just his instinct to do so. So we definitely see that his past has taken a toll on him. We get a glimpse of his home life. He lives alone in a small apartment. He looks fondly on a photo of him younger with a young woman, and we see him hover over her name in his contacts list on his phone, as if he's kind of tempted to reach out to her. So we know that Morgan, for him to be as good as he is at what he does, he has had to sacrifice a lot. That's a lot of really good background on this character. And I think that B. Claymore does a lot with the pages that he's allotted to really get that across. It was something that I wanted to see a little bit more in Bloodland, where we were introduced to a lot more characters in that, so he really couldn't get into the nitty gritty. I like the more hyper focused we are on this one character here. I will say that what we do kind of suffer a little bit in is the world that we're introduced to is very much a modern day world. I will say, as somebody who works in a corporate space, I do appreciate the very realistic approach to what a building shutdown looks like. Basically, a group of terrorists come in, shut the building down. We don't know what their motive is yet, but it's very much like Die Hard in that there are a lot of like corporate people trapped here. This is not the world that they're used to. And Morgan happens to be there making deliveries, and that's how he gets tied into this mess. I don't think there's like the real world characters are juxtaposed in such a way against Morgan that we don't really get to see or care about them. Like the people in the support group, aside from one guy, are well-meaning. His coworkers are well-meaning. These people that are working in the office are just regular everyday people. Even the terrorist group that are doing this, they seem like weirdly mild mannered, as if they don't really know what they're getting into by doing this as well. So I felt that the book suffered a little bit there. That you gave me a really great main character, and you've put him in a world where nobody is as important as him, um, and he doesn't have an equal. So the story of the book is now Morgan is going to attempt to get as many people out of the building alive as possible, while also subduing these terrorists through his black ops training and experience. And of course, we do get, like I said, little glimpses of the violence used to perpetrate. So that might come up as a sort of a dark shadow, much like how John Rambo would go a little too far in First Blood. Anyway, uh, that being said, is there enough here that makes me want to continue reading? I'm on the fence on. I think that they did such a great job establishing Morgan, but then like the world itself, I don't have a reason to care. I don't have a reason to care about these corporate people. Like they all seem like mild mannered to the point that they don't understand the level of threat they're in, nor does this terrorist group seem to be like a real big threat either. So like I would have loved to have seen like um you know what's the an antagonist that was Morgan's equal introduced here, like an actual threat. That would have done a little bit more for me to make me want to continue seeing where this goes. Because as of right now, I think the issue ends in a really good way of, he's going to lead this first floor of people out of the building and then go up to the fifth floor and try to do the same. But again, I don't really think the stakes are that strong here. Aside from if I just want to see some really cool action panels. Speaking of, we're going to talk about the art really, really good. Daniel Gete was sort of described in this book as having a bit of a Frank Quietly flair when they were looking for an artist that would fit what they're going for. So we do get to see a little bit of his kinetic action style. So like we'll kind of just show you here real quick, just as an example of the art. I think the art is very good, by the way. I think the art does a great job, and we get to see sort of these action panels in place. I think the facial expressions are particularly strong as well. So again, ultimately, is Dispatched a book that I would recommend getting issue two? I would suggest issue two, but I would say if that in issue two that comes out in August, there is not, if I still feel like there's not a sufficient level threat put up against Morgan, an equal, then I probably wouldn't continue reading the series. I think Morgan deserves that kind of character, and I hope it's on the way. That being said, we're going to wrap it up here for new number ones. We just did a very silly episode of the regular show of just me and Dylan talking about anthropomorphic crocodile characters and other animal characters as well. So if you want something of a more relaxed but focused episode, I think that's a good example. And this upcoming week, we're going to finally do the Avengers Wheel of Redemption, and it's a pretty long one. We've got 41 names on a wheel, and we're going to try to get through as many of them with a caveat. So definitely check that out. Until then, though, this is going to be me signing off. Have a good one.